First one here is the Future of Growth panel. That's gaining creative courage in financial services. So please welcome to the stage Dr. Fabiola Corvera Steimling of Northwestern Mutual, Jill Miser with MasterCard, and Lee Zucker with Drift. Welcome to the stage, guys. Yeah. Come on up, grab a seat. Good to see you all this morning. Thanks for coming. If you could, first to kick things off, if you could each introduce yourselves, talk a little about your role and why you're here today.
Great. So I'm Jill Moser with MasterCard, and I lead global loyalty in the offer sector, specifically for MasterCard.
Fabiola Corvera Steimling. I lead the purchase experience transformation for Northwestern Mutual.
My name is Lee Zucker. I lead go-to-market strategy and sales for Drift.
Awesome. Well, thanks again so much for being here. And this panel right now, what we're here to talk about is actually, I think, a great topic when it comes to marketers today, which is gaining courage, having courage to step out and try new things. AI being one of those things, which is obviously a core theme of this conference here today. But one of the things that we're talking about with this one specifically is how we can differentiate ourselves in a more uniform market, which we seem to kind of fall into sometimes in financial services. So when it comes to thinking about core differentiation, I would love to hear maybe some use cases on how you guys are differentiating yourselves in your marketing programs and what you're doing today. We can start with you.
Okay. So at MasterCard, right, we have an immense amount of data, and we sit in a unique position for that. And my role specifically in offers, we are sitting in between and kind of play a little bit of Switzerland between merchants that are looking to provide amazing offers and, reach out to customers that they're interested in. But then on the financial side of the business, we have to protect that data and ensure that we can find those things from a personalized manner, give customers the right offer at the right time that they are interested in without sharing, any of the data privacy, around how do we protect that and, live in between the middle. So from a use case, I think it's, for us, it's a great way for us to live in that world where you can find a merchant that says, I want to reach someone that maybe is shopping with my competitor in a first party or zero party type way. We can, of course, pour through the data, understand, who the right person is, predict redemptions through AI in terms of what would a customer be interested in, and be that attributable type of manner. So with the death of the cookie and things that are, challenging marketers today, I think it becomes a nice, way to do that and provide great service for clients.
That's a great example. How about you, Dr. Fabiola?
Yes, so I have to admit, I'm not in marketing. I am in the client experience transformation. So with that lens, the approach we're taking is really looking at that human behind that purchase. When you think about financial services, I think it was discussed yesterday that trust is critical. So when you think about how that customer, or in this case, consumer, are starting their journey with marketing earlier in that stage, you have to look at it as one continuum. We as companies tend to just think in verticals, right? Marketing, acquisition, retention, deepen that engagement, but you have to look at it from a continuum perspective, making sure that that consumer or client, you are addressing their goals, their needs, their wants, and you are moving that in a way that is less friction, less barriers, less clicks, to make sure that as they are moving through that continuum, that you are reinforcing that action to make sure that they're not dropping. So when you think about financial services, it's a very emotional purchase. We are in the risk and wealth products. So think about life insurance, DI, long-term care, but also investment products. So when you think about it, you cannot just look at it. I think yesterday Lindsay mentioned we tend to look at transformations or technology advancements like a thing, like a tactical thing, and you can't do that. You really have to look at the human. Just because financial services, you're dealing with something very emotional, and if you don't look at that human behind that purchase or that consumer, that individual, you are going to miss the mark. So as a case study, the way we're transforming, we're really looking at that consumer or customer, that we understand how they felt or how they're feeling as they're engaging with the company, to make sure that we're not indirectly affecting that interaction as they're engaged with us online through a human financial advisor or through any of the online content.
I love that. Yeah, the human aspect of it can be a huge key differentiator. Lee, how about you? What are you guys doing?
Yeah, so Drift is a buyer engagement platform that actually works with financial services organizations. So we are not a financial service organization. So I'll talk a bit about what we're seeing with our customers, and it really echoes a lot of what Jill and Fabiola talked about. And what I want to do is take us away from the financial services industry for a second and think about when you checked into your hotel if you're traveling from outside New York today, or think about a more commoditized hotel experience where you have to go, you give your name, it's a very transactional experience, but you can go from one hotel to the other, maybe the room looks a little bit differently. And then think about your most ideal hotel check-in experience when you're going to a 5-star hotel, or what you would ultimately want. You would want to check into that hotel and have the person checking you in recognize you by name, prepare a whole list of excursions or restaurants that you might be interested in based upon your history of what you like and your preferences that you chose based on the last hotel similar to their brand that you stayed with. It's really a personalized, high-touch experience that makes you feel loyalty to that hotel and wanting to go back, and ultimately provides a better experience for you. That's what we believe is the experience that any commoditized industry or any potential financial services organization should want within their customer experience. And that's really hard to come by. And that's what our customers are striving for when a potential buyer or customer or existing customer lands on any one of their digital properties or speaks to their agents or sales team. They want that hyper-personalized touch to carry that buyer experience all the way through their journey and have it be very personalized and high touch. So that's what we're seeing as a huge shift within this industry, leaning more into what consumers want in our day-to-day lives, and that translating to the B2B or highly considered emotional purchase side.
Yeah, that's interesting, because the human aspect, the emotional aspect, no matter what that purchasing decision or that tree looks like, that journey that you're taking, there's always going to be a human behind it, at least for now, until the robots are buying from robots. But at least for now, there's that emotional aspect to it, right? So one thing that we were thinking about, and Jill, that you mentioned, right, is the fact that cookies are dissolving, right? And this way that we're actually tracking people's behavior across our various platforms, our websites, knowing who they are and being able to place them and have that data. What are we going to do to get crazy and be able to keep track of what our buyers and prospects are doing when cookies are going away? I'll kick it over to you first.
Yeah, I think most interestingly, well, at MasterCard anyway, we, want to empower the customer, right? And that's both our financial institutions, our banks, as well as the end customer. It's your data, right? You have a right to that data. We protect it. We're in the trusted position to protect it, but we want to ensure that customers have the right to their data. And when it comes to cookies, I think a lot of the regulations we're seeing, and even if you read about earlier this week, there was a key crackdown on Meta in the EU, and it's pretty scary, I think, for a lot of marketers out there of what does this mean, right? How do you ensure that you're giving that customer the right consents, that they understand what the trade is? If you agree to consent, then this is what you're agreeing to trade from a data perspective. But that makes it more important that you're relying mostly on zero and first party data, right? So what do you have? What do you know about the customer? How do you engage the customer to ask them questions? We see some really great results when you are incenting that type of behavior. So maybe behavioral type of rewards that you add on when the customer is willing to share that extra data with you, so that you can personalize in a better way. So I know that Lee was speaking about that as well in terms of how do we really bring that in from a customer standpoint.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So it's incentivizing the sharing of the information from the customer.
Well, I think it's important that they understand what's the trade, right?
There's always a trade-off.
There's always a trade. I mean,
Yeah.
I use Gmail as an example. Most of us have a Gmail address, right? It's free. So you have to understand what are you giving up by getting the free service?
Yeah, and I think when all these free services were taking the center stage 20, 30 years ago, we made a declaration, we made a deal, right? We said, okay, we want it to be free, and we're going to give you our information in exchange for that. And now things are starting to move toward paid, and we're getting more stringent on sharing that information. So the customer experience is changing quite a bit, or that usage experience. So it's really interesting what you said there.
Transparency is important.
Transparency is super important. Dr. Fabiola, how about you? What do you think about this transition away from this tracking and having to incentivize the user to share their information with us?
I think Jill just nailed it in terms of helping them understand what that means for them. Because at the end of the day, the consumer or the client is trying to really remove any barriers. They just want something that is easier as they are navigating through whatever it is, maybe financial services, maybe another industry. But transparency in regards to what this means for them in very, very simple terms, and what is it that if they provide additional information, what will that do for them? So that applies for also life insurance and other industries where they're like, why you are asking me for all this information when you don't just go and get it? But if you are not able to set the expectations and help them understand that this is why we need this information, and are you granting us the ability to use that information? I think the transparency, the ability to educate them of why we need that and how are we going to use it, and even take it to how we're going to store it, is going to be critical as we continue to move into that the world that personalization is not going to be something that the client or the consumer is not going to want. They want that personalization. They want to feel like you know them, like you are the only one that understands them. So how you do that? You need their data. You need to be able to understand that holistic picture of Lee, Jill, or Tim.
Yeah. Leo, kick it over to you.
Yeah. So over the last decade in digital marketing, we've been seeing a trend around this concept of intent marketing. With the death of the third-party cookie, intent marketing is going to become wildly more critical. Because what happens when a potential buyer or consumer has high intent? Think about the last purchase that you made when you really wanted to buy a new phone or a new internet service or anything outside of this industry. You are willing to give more information. You're willing to ask more detailed questions, and you're more eager to speak with someone who's going to give you the information that you want, whether that be a salesperson or a customer service representative, to get you to that ultimate buying purchase. So intent marketing is going to be something that we see have been as way more of a priority, with the idea of tracking someone as they're navigating off of your website or through digital properties, as that continues to become more regulated or less possible. One thing to also invest time in understanding is the concept of first-party cookies. right? So first-party cookies, and Joe kind of talked about the idea of if you're someone who's willing to relinquish your data or give information, that first-party cookie is super powerful in how a business actually harnesses that and uses that to drive intent and personalization after that permission is given. So while third-party cookies are going to become more regulated, and we talk about the death of the third-party cookie over the last several years, there still is that interest from buyers to have that more one-to-one experience, and it's all around when they have intent to do so and how you nurture them to drive that intent to the outcome that you want.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. So one thing we have on to cover is talking about voice of the customer, and I want to keep going with you based off of kind of what you were just saying. Is that something that you see is driving a lot of these changes, like elimination of the third-party cookie? Is that the consumer or the customer raising their hand saying, like, I'm sick of hearing this? What are we hearing from the customers, and how are we using that voice of the customer to drive our digital change?
Yeah. So what we're hearing is that the B2B or considered purchase buying experience is ultimately broken. Think about the best consumer buying experience you have. For me, it's Amazon. You go, they know what you want, they know recommended products, it's a few clicks and you're done. Granted, are you going to get that when you're buying 401k plans or life insurance or anything like that? But probably not exactly that. But you could buy a Tesla in like 60 seconds, and who thought you could buy a car that quickly a few years ago? So I do think that we're seeing that shift in, we are all ultimately consumers, and so when we buy something for our businesses, or when we have highly considered purchases for our families, we ultimately want similar experiences. What we're seeing shift is that a considered purchase or B2B buying experience currently has like 27 different touch points before you ultimately make a purchase. I think some would argue that's way too long, and all of those different touch points are times when you can lose the opportunity to actually get someone to buy. On top of that, 88% of the buying journey by 2025 is going to be done all digitally. So like not even talking to a person, a live person digitally. It's all going to be done via e-commerce like tools across different industries. And so that's how we're seeing like the customer experience and customer expectation shift. And what a lot of financial services firms are doing is using technology and, yes, AI to think about that next best action or empower their internal teams, where it's a little risky to empower consumers or potential buyers with AI right now, but empowering their internal teams to be more efficient to provide that faster buying journey and enable those digital tools for their potential buyers.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And Dr. Fabioli talking about human experience, obviously that ties directly into this question, right? Which is focusing on that voice of the customer. What are they telling you?
Yeah, and I will piggyback a little bit on what you said. So when you're talking about fast, there's also a fine balance in terms of understanding, the ability to understand what they're buying. So of course, through Amazon, you see that reinforcement of simple products, of reviews. The client can see and sense what is happening if they are not familiar with the brand or with the product. When you think about financial services, when there is an intangible, really, promise that you are actually selling, it's something that they cannot touch, they cannot smell, they cannot actually have it in their hands after they pay money. So what you need to do is, yes, remove frictions, because the more touch points that you have, there's going to be people that are going to drop out of that funnel. But there is also something that at least in the life insurance industry or in investments, there is a lack of understanding. So our clients and consumers are telling us, yes, it's great to have less friction, more quick ability to really purchase. But if you don't help us understand what this does to me as a client, doesn't matter that it's fast, they're not going to click. So you need to bring that fine balance to educate that client, and technology is going to make it so much easier to be able to provide a base level experience that you are reinforcing, as I was saying, reinforcing that action in terms of what that client will need, and that is actually personalized to what they want. So what our clients are telling us is, yes, we need more help in terms of really understanding what these products mean and how that actually is going to help me or my family. We are going to continue to see that, but how you go about doing it, it may change. Of course, technology is going to play a big role.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Jill, how about at MasterCard? What are you guys doing to listen to the customer?
Right. So I think, first, not just MasterCard, just kind of an industry as a whole and how we look at this. The customers are expecting personalization, right? So that's a given of what's expected. If you look at like the average attention span now, like by age, and you look at Gen Z, it's really small. You have to grab them so
Goldfish.
fast. It is. Yes, it's the memory of a goldfish, right? That's Ted Lasso. We were talking about that. So, in that environment of how do you, move this forward and grab the attention quickly, you do have to personalize, right? And if you ask the customer, from the voice of the customer, over 70% say they expect personalization. It's not just that, you should do it. They expect it. And if they're not getting it, you're going to lose their attention. They're going to move. And how do you do that? For our services and in this industry, from financial services, having that customer and getting them to trust you, getting them to understand that you're there for them, that you understand what they need in the moment, understanding click behavior, dwell time, what is that, what's the next best action based on what we know about average consumers that look like you, or based on who you are, because you've told us it's okay that we do this, and understanding that transaction behavior. What do we want to show to you next that might be available to you? And I think if you can do that well, and you can get them in and out, which is what they're looking for, they don't want to sit there for a long time, but if you can do that really well, I think you gain the loyalty. I always say loyalty is an outcome, right? It's not event-based. It's not a point transaction. It's nothing like that. It's an outcome after many, many, many various predictable interactions where they know they can trust you.
Yeah, building that trust takes a long time.
It does, yeah.
It's not just overnight, right? So tactically, you guys, and either one of you can jump in. Tactically, how are you listening to the customer? Because we can talk about, oh yeah, we should listen, and they're telling us this, they're telling us that. What type of initiatives are you taking to actually be able to listen to them? Maybe they don't like cookies anymore, so they're not clicking the box. You could say, okay, no one's clicking the box to accept cookies on our website, but how are you actually monitoring that and capturing it so then you know what steps to take? Anyone can jump in.
Yeah, I think someone yesterday was talking about different methods in terms of how you listen. Of course, I think now every company has surveys. You have the ability to understand from the different platforms, digital platforms, what is the behavior, how they're interacting, but also you need to be able to understand the emotional aspect. And in order to understand the emotional aspect, it's going to be extremely hard to get that through a quantitative study, through surveys. So what we have done is we have actually used ethnographic studies to really dedicate time to sitting the clients or consumers' living rooms for 2 hours to help us understand their actual journey. You cannot get to the emotional component if you have not established trust with them. And in order to do that, they have to see you. So building the ability to deploy studies like ethnographic studies will allow you to see how they see your brand, how they perceive you, what make them come to you or what make them not go with a competitor. What we need to do as a company to ensure that we are actually responding to what they want. And if we don't know how they felt, how actually the tools, the processes, all the interactions they have with us through the advisor or through home office, if we don't understand how that actually play out in their eyes, then we're going to be in for a long journey, because then we're just guessing. So tactically, really understanding how they feel when you're interacting with them is critical.
Sentiment, as much as possible, right? Lee, what are you guys doing over there?
So I think beyond your traditional sentiment analysis or any surveys or the follow-ups after you had a call with a live agent or salesperson, I think the concept of you're getting signals about your customers throughout their digital journey and throughout their personal interaction at every step that they ultimately interact with your organization. And so what's critical around that is having a CRM set up, having a CDP set up, making sure that your tech stack is actually interacting with each other so that your email platform and your chat platform and your sales rep are all speaking the same language. Your sales rep should know that the person who just set up a meeting with them got an email about a special offer, and that person also landed on your website and actually interacted with the chat to book a meeting on your calendar. And then you should be able to look in your CDP that says, actually, they were really unhappy with their last experience that they had with your brand. So I think what's important, other than them proactively providing you feedback around their sentiment and how they feel, what we see a lot of our customers doing is, and the first question that they ask before they even take another conversation with our company is, who do you interact with? Who do you partner with? Who do you integrate with? And how does that actually help me provide a better customer journey and more authentic customer journey to make it feel like there are actually humans listening and supporting and caring about what I want and need. So I think this is the area where you can use AI and technology, again, within the parameters of the regulations we deal with in this industry, to educate your internal teams on how to provide that better personalized interaction for the buyer insights.
Something that Lee just said, I think there's an important note of making sure that you are doing everything that you're supposed to be doing so that you stay out of regulators' eyeballs and that you're doing the right thing for customers and clients, et cetera. But I think that intersection of AI is an exciting time, for us. I think for a lot it's scary, but I think it's exciting because of the harnessing the power that we have associated with the technology now to understand things much, much sooner than we did before. Understanding things that would have taken data analysts months before via Excel spreadsheets, you can find out in milliseconds, right? Helping to better understand and how to better present to a customer when you're interconnected with your marketing departments, et cetera, because you are understanding much better based on all of the data you have available to you.
Yeah, and I think that's great to another point, which is breaking down those silos internally, right? Because every team needs to be involved in that customer listening to be able to apply that tactically. And so whether you're in sales, whether you're in marketing, everybody should be having the same speak. So I think that's really, really interesting. So thinking about how to do that collaboratively as a marketing leader, as a sales leader, as a financial leader, how can you take charge of that to say, hey guys, I'm going to step up here and show you the way, show you how to apply these tactics, show you how to use that speak in a less, I guess, lack of a better term, less formal type of approach where we can get to our customers' level and be able to listen to them. Is there other steps that, Joe, maybe you've taken as a leader within your organization to break down those silos?
Yeah, I think I'm going to defer to Lee here because we were talking about this morning at breakfast. I think you covered it well.
Sure.
Yeah, I think for breaking down silos across internal teams, my recommendation is lean on your partners, your vendors, right? Frankly, your vendors want you to buy more of their technology, and they want you to lean on them to do that, and they are willing to facilitate the cross-functional conversations to get everyone on the same page and also bring in their partners, whether they're other technology partners or other agency partners or digital transformation partners to do it. So I would say lean on your resources externally to do the heavy lifting for you and help you kind of build that cross-functional collaboration plan for your organization internally. I think that everyone wins then because your peers are then educated on something that they didn't know historically. You and your team don't have to do the work, and maybe you end up fulfilling a better partnership in the end. So that's what I've seen be really helpful. In addition to kind of the response to my last question is when you're building around central systems, or I'm sure many of you have centers of excellence or central marketing or central IT, bringing them into the fold early so then they can kind of help facilitate the cross-functional work around that. And being a vetted technology or vetted partner or vetted initiative by that center of excellence, what we've seen is that helps anything go faster. That's more cross-functional, especially in the size of the organizations that you all work in and you two are a part of as well.
Yeah, I think when you think about transformation of a very mature company, a 167-year-old company, assuring that as you are identifying the problem that you're going to solve, bring every single department from that beginning of that conversation to really assess what is the problem that we're going to solve and how are we going to go about it. Because they are going to be able to be part of the solution instead of receiving the solution. So co-creation from the initial stages with different stakeholders, you can talk about legal, you can talk, of course, your IT partners, your delivery partners, digital product, marketing, your sales, field force, even the client, of course, to ensure that you are solving in a more cross-collaborative way versus you having to work harder on that change management at the end of that project. The one thing that I would like to highlight also is showing that success and ability to understand whoa, it's possible. And really rely on those early promoters and really anchor them so that can start expanding. Because of course, change is not only the technology change, it's the human, the employee capital change. So as you are working on that transformation and cross-functional collaboration, if you make them part of that solution, they're going to be there helping remove some of the barriers that you are going to encounter as you move from an MVP to, of course, a full-scale transformation.
Yeah, and humans change, but they change slowly, don't they, guys? Yeah. Well, I wanted to turn it over to questions from the audience here to talk a little bit and hear from the panelists. Does anyone have any questions that we have one right over here in front? Get you a mic.
You said there was, about 27 different touch points across the journey, if you will. How many, you're not going to have 27 different messages, but what's the fine line as far as messaging and creatives and touch points across the different channels to use for those 27 messages, and how much is too much before they kind of get annoyed with seeing it?
Yeah, so those 27 different touch points are both outbound and inbound touch points. So they're marketing touch points where sent out an email, they opened up an email, they interacted with it, or they talked with a salesperson and another salesperson, or talked with the salesperson several times, and then they came back and interacted with a chat experience. So it's a lot of back and forth. And so kind of what I would rely on is the conversation that we were talking about in terms of understanding that customer sentiment all the way through allows you to build the creative, build the messaging that is consistent based upon what that potential buyer or site visitor or customer wants or is expecting all the way through that journey. So I don't think it's getting annoying if they're continuing to interact with it and they're taking the next steps. I think that the risk to all of us who want to do more with our customers is that the longer it takes, the less chance you get to the finish line, whatever that might be.
Good question. We have any others in the front?
Hi. Wondering if you think that this demand for personalization from an outreach point of view also should be matched with personalization from an actual product composition point of view. Do we need to be actually building people suites of mass customized financial products that truly meet their needs, rather than saying, hey, here's our high yield savings? Should it be like, here's a version of a savings account specifically designed for you?
Right. Personally, I think that's where this is going, right, is finding ways to do highly personalized products based on what's going from a loyalty perspective. We also offer, cardholder services, not just to MasterCard products, but, portfolio-wide for financial services. And some things that we are starting to lean on is allowing people to pick their benefits. Right? Imagine your cards and, you may not be interested in a lounge pass because you never travel, for example, right? How can you pick what's unique for you? So I think it is going in that direction.
Okay, one more over here.
Thank you. Are there certain types of questions that you found most impactful with using AI, especially with the reduction in touch points that are happening over time?
Yeah, I think it's ultimately what is the ultimate outcome that you want. So if it's specifically for support use cases, and I know that we were talking about this, that your support center, there's 20 questions that are the most common questions that take up the phone lines and are really pretty easy to answer. That's where you start if you want to reduce cost in your support center. On the flip side, if you want to sell, your site visitors something and convert them into really qualified sales leads, maybe there's questions that you vet them out so that you make sure that you actually get them to the right person who are, any people capital is your most expensive resources. So questions that get them to the right person at the right time when they're ready to have a conversation rather than when they're just tire kicking. So it's all based upon what the ultimate outcome is, and then you can build the questions backwards from there.
Cool. All right, well, we're just about out of time for this section. Let's give our panelists a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Appreciate it.